We're back in Mishneh Torah. We're dealing with, this is Sefer Ahavah, the Book of Love. This is Hilchot, Tefillah, uBirkat, Kohanim, so the laws of prayer and the priestly blessing. We're at Parak Yod, so chapter 10. It says, one who prayed without focusing his thoughts must pray again with intent. But if one focused his intent in the first blessing, he need not repeat the prayer. So one who made a mistake in one of the three first blessings must go back to the beginning of the prayer. And if one made a mistake in one of the three final blessings, he must go back to the blessing of the service, or ritzeh. If one made a mistake in one of the intermediate blessings, he must go back to the start of the blessing in which he erred and complete his prayer in order. So too, if the prayer leader erred while reciting the prayer aloud, he must go back in the same fashion. So, however, if the prayer leader erred while praying in an undertone, I posit that he does not go back and pray a second time in an undertone, so as not to inconvenience the congregation. Rather, he may rely on the prayer that he will recite aloud. So basically, the first time when he's doing it personally, right, before he does it for the congregation, if he makes that mistake, he doesn't have to go back because it would delay the congregation. So he would just make sure that he has the intent that when he says it for the congregation, he's also saying it to correct himself for the correction of it, right? If the leader of the congregation erred and became confused and does not know from where to begin and paused for a while, another should take his place. If he erred in the blessing concerning heretics, they should not wait for him. Rather, he should immediately be replaced, for perhaps he has a tinge of heresy. That is, only if he did not begin the blessing. But if he began it, they should wait a while for him. The second leader who is asked to stand in should not demur at this time. Where does the replacement leader begin? From the start of the blessing in which the first erred. If he erred in one of the intermediate blessings, but if he erred in one of the first three, the second leader begins from the very beginning. If he erred in one of the final blessings, the second should begin from the blessing of the service, so ritzeh. So if one says, I will not go down to the teva to lead the prayers, for my clothes are dyed, he may not lead that prayer even when dressed in white. If one says, I will not lead the prayer, for I am wearing shoes, he may not lead even when barefoot. One who is in doubt as to whether he has prayed or not does not pray again, unless his intent is that his prayer be voluntary. For if an individual wishes to pray voluntary prayers all day long, he may do so. One who stands in prayer and remembers that he has already prayed stops even in the middle of a blessing, but if it was the evening prayer, he does not stop, for his original intent was that it is not an obligatory prayer. One who erred and prayed the weekday Shemona Esrei prayer on Shabbos has fulfilled his obligation, though if he remembers while in the midst of the prayer, he should finish the blessing he began and return to pray the Shabbos prayer. To which prayers does this apply? To Arvit, Shachrit, or Mincha. But in Musaf, one should stop even in the middle of a blessing. So too, if one completed the weekday prayer thinking that it was Musaf, he must pray Musaf again, whether on Shabbos, a holiday, or Rosh Chodesh. One who erred in the rainy season and did not say Morid HaGeshem nor Morid HaTal must return to the start of Shemona Esrei. If he mentioned dew, he need not return. If one erred in the hot season and said Morid HaGeshem, he must repeat from the start. But if one did not mention dew, he is not made to go back, for dew does not cease and does not require a petition. One who forgot the appeal for rain and the blessing of the years, so Barech Haleinu, if he remembers before Shomea Tefillah, he appeals for rain in Shomea Tefillah. If one remembered after completing the blessing Shomea Tefillah, he must return to the blessing of the years. If he did not remember until completing his entire prayer, he must go back and pray a second time. If one erred and did not mention Ya'aleh V'yavo, if he remembers before completing his prayer, he returns to the blessing of the service, or ritzeh, and mentions it. If he remembers after completing his prayer, he must return to the beginning. However, if one was accustomed to reciting words of supplication after his prayer, such as Elokai Nitzor, and remembered after completing the prayer, but before moving his feet from place, he returns to the blessing of the service. When does this apply? During Kol HaMoed or Shachrit in Mincha of Rosh Chodesh, but at Arvit of Rosh Chodesh, if he did not mention Ya'aleh v'yavo, he need not go back. And in any circumstance where an individual must pray again, the leader of the congregation must pray again. If he erred similarly while praying aloud, except during Shacharit of Rosh Chodesh, where if the leader of the congregation forgot and did not mention Ya'aleh v'yavo until the completing his prayer, he does not go back, so as not to inconvenience the congregation, for he will mention Rosh Chodesh in the Musaf prayer ahead. So during the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if one erred and concluded the third blessing, Ha'el HaKadosh, he must return to the start. If he erred and concluded the 11th blessing, Melech Ohed Tzedakah U'Mishpat, he must return to the beginning of the blessing, and conclude with HaMelech HaMishpat, and continue the prayer in order. But if he did not remember until completing his prayer, he must return to the beginning. This applies to both an individual and a congregation. If one erred and did not mention the Havdalah in the blessing of Chonein Hada'at, if he remembers before Shemei Tefillah, he recites the Havdalah in Shemei Tefillah. But if one remembers after Shemei Tefillah, one completes the prayer and does not need to go back. So too, one who did not mention Al Hanisim on Hanukkah or Purim or Anenu in the prayers of the fast day need not pray again, whether an individual or congregation. If one remembers before moving his feet from place, he recites the Anenu prayer at that point. Remember us, our Father, etc., for you listen to prayer and redeem and save at all times of trouble. And then he proceeds normally, Viyu l'ratzon imrei fi. Right? So if one forgot and did not pray Mincha on the eve of Shabbos, he should pray the Shabbos evening prayer twice. So too on holidays. If one forgot and did not pray Mincha on Shabbos or on a holiday, upon the departure of Shabbos or the holiday, he should recite the weekday prayer, evening prayer twice, and insert Havdalah in the first, but not in the second. If he recites Havdalah in both prayers or in neither one, he has fulfilled his obligation. But if he does not recite the Havdalah in the first and does recite it in the second, he must go back and pray a third prayer, for the first does not count, for he put it before the prayer, which serves as the evening prayer. Anytime one prays two prayers, even the morning prayer and Musaf, he should not recite them consecutively. Rather, he should wait between each prayer so that his thoughts are composed. One who prays with the congregation may not pray before the prayer of the congregation. One who enters the synagogue and finds the congregation praying Shemona Esrei in an undertone, if he is able to begin and finish before the leader of the congregation reaches Kedusha, he should pray. If not, he should wait until the leader of the congregation is ready to pray aloud, and he should then pray along with him in an undertone, word for word, until the leader of the congregation reaches Kedusha. He then responds to the Kedusha with the congregation and continues the rest of the prayer on his own. If one begins the prayer before the leader of the congregation and the leader reaches Kedusha, he should not stop and should not respond to Kedusha with them. He may also not respond Amen Yehei Shmei Rabam Avarach while in the midst of prayer. This goes without saying regarding the other blessings. Parak Yod Aleph, chapter 11. In any place where there are 10 Jews, they must prepare a house in which to gather for prayer at all prayer times. This is called a synagogue, or a Beit Knesset. The people of the city can compel one another to build a synagogue and to purchase scrolls of Torah, prophets, and writings. When building a synagogue, it must be built at the highest point in the city, as it states, at the head of the tumultuous streets she shall call. It should be raised until it is higher than all the courtyards in the city, as it states, and to raise up the house of our God. The opening of the synagogue should be specifically at the east, as it states, and those who encamped at the front of the Mishkan to the east. The ark should be built inside it, in which to place the Torah scroll, and the ark should be built on the side towards which they pray in that city, so that they face the ark when they stand in prayer. A dais is erected in the center of the structure upon which the Torah reader or one who exhorts the people ascends, so that all can hear. When the teva, the small ark that has one Torah scroll, is placed, it is placed in the center with its rear facing the ark and its front facing the people. How should the people sit in the synagogues? The elders should sit facing the people with their backs towards the ark, and all the people should sit in rows, each row facing the back of the row in front of it, so that all face the sanctuary, the ark, the elders, and the teva. When the leader of the congregation stands in prayer, he stands on the ground in front of the teva, facing the sanctuary, like the rest of the people. Synagogues and study halls must be treated with respect. They must be swept and their floors sprinkled with water to keep the dust down. The custom of all the Jewish people in Spain, in the Maghreb, in Sumer, that's Babylon, and the cherished land, that's the land of Israel, is to light lamps in the synagogues and to spread mats for sitting on the ground. In the cities of Edom, so were Christian countries, the people sit on chairs. In synagogues and study halls, one may not behave lightheadedly, such as engaging in laughter, jest, or idle talk. One may not eat or drink in them, nor primp oneself in them, nor stroll in them. One may not enter them in the heat to avoid the sun, nor when it rains to avoid the rain. The Torah sages and their students are permitted to eat and drink in them when they must. So one may not do any calculations in them unless they are mitzvah-related calculations, such as calculations of funds for charity or the redemption of captives and the like. They may not be used for eulogies except for public eulogies. For example, if the great sages of the city will participate in the eulogy and all the people gather and come because of them. If the synagogue or study hall has two entrances, one may not use it as a byway, entering by one door and leaving by the other door opposite as a shortcut. For it is forbidden to enter them except for the sake of a mitzvah. One who needs to enter a synagogue to summon a child or colleague should enter, read some scripture, or recite from the oral law, and then call his colleague, so that he does not enter only for his own purposes. If he does not know how, he should tell one of the children, "Read to me the verse that you are studying." Or he should remain in the synagogue a bit and then leave, for sitting in the synagogue is also a matter of mitzvah. As it states, "Fortunate are those who sit in your house." One who entered through one door in order to read scripture or to pray is permitted to leave through the opposite door as a shortcut, and one may enter the synagogue with his staff while wearing shoes and wearing his afunda, which is an undershirt with pockets for money and other things. If one must spit, it is permitted to do so in the synagogue. Synagogues and study halls which are in ruins remain in their state of sanctity, as it states, "And I will lay desolate your sanctuaries." Although they lie desolate, they remain in their state of sanctity. Just as they are treated while in good repair, they must be treated while in ruins, except for sweeping and sprinkling for the dust. And for ruined synagogues are not swept or sprinkled. If weeds sprout in them, one should not uproot them, and if they were uprooted, they should be left in place, so that the people see them and their spirit is stirred to endeavor to rebuild them. A synagogue may not be demolished to build another in its place or in a different place. First, another must be built, and only then may the first be demolished, lest they are forced by circumstances beyond their control not to rebuild it. Even if one of its walls has nearly collapsed, a new wall should be built alongside the old wall, and then the old one should be demolished. When does this apply? When its foundations are not ruined. But if its foundations are ruined or its walls lean toward collapse, it should be demolished immediately, and they should commence construction and build quickly by day and night, lest the delay cause it to remain in ruins. It is permitted to convert a synagogue into a study hall, but a study hall may not be converted into a synagogue. For the sanctity of a study hall is greater than the sanctity of a synagogue, and objects may be raised in sanctity but not degraded. So too, if the townsfolk sold a synagogue, they can use the proceeds to purchase a teva. If they sold the teva, they can use the proceeds to purchase cloth covers or a container for a Torah scroll. If they sold the cloth covers or the container, they can use the proceeds to purchase individual scrolls of the 5 books of the Torah. If they sold the individual scrolls of the Torah, they can use the proceeds to purchase a complete Sefer Torah. If, however, they sold a Torah scroll, they may only use the proceeds to purchase another Torah scroll, for there is no greater sanctity than that of a Torah scroll. The same applies to any surplus sum remaining after the purchase of an item of greater sanctity. So too, if funds were collected from the people for the purpose of building a study hall or synagogue, or the purchase of a teva, or cloth covers, or a container for a Torah scroll, and they wish to use the funds that they collected for a different purpose, they may not transfer them except from a lesser sanctity to a greater sanctity. However, if they have already completed the purpose for which they collected the funds, and there is a surplus, and surplus may be transferred to any use that they choose. All synagogue items have the status of a synagogue. The curtain covering the ark in which the scrolls are placed has the status of the cloth covers of the scrolls. If they were consecrated conditionally, their status follows the condition. When does the above apply? That it is permitted to sell a synagogue. Concerning a village synagogue, which was only intended for the use of villagers, so that they would have a place to pray. There, if they all wish to sell it, they may do so. But a synagogue in a large city, since it was intended for the use of all people in all the world, that all who come to the city be able to pray in it, it belongs to all the Jewish people and can never be sold. If villagers wish to sell their synagogue, either to use the funds to build another synagogue or to purchase a teva or a Torah scroll, they must make a condition with the purchaser that he not convert it to a bathhouse, nor a tannery, that is a place where hides are processed, nor a mikveh, nor a laboratory. If, however, the 7 town nobles, in the presence of all the townsfolk, resolved, at the time of the sale, to condition the sale so that the purchaser be permitted to convert it to any of the above, it is permitted. So too, if the 7 town nobles, in the presence of the townsfolk, resolved that the surplus funds may be used for mundane purposes, the surplus monies are mundane. Once the funds have been used to build another synagogue or to purchase a teva, or cloth covers, or a container, or Torah scrolls, or individual books of the Torah, the surplus becomes mundane as they resolved, and they may do whatever they choose with it. So too, if all the townsfolk, or the majority, appoint an individual to be responsible for all synagogue matters, whatever actions he undertakes are valid. He may sell and negotiate on his own as he sees fit, and may implement any conditions he sees fit. Just as they may sell a synagogue, so they may grant it as a gift, or if the community would have no benefit from such a gift, they would not give it, but it may not be rented out, nor used as security. So too, when synagogues are demolished in order to be rebuilt, it is permitted to sell, exchange, or gift their bricks, lumber, and earth. It is forbidden to loan them. However, as their sanctity does not leave them except in exchange for money, or for benefit which is equivalent to money. A city square, though used by the people for prayer on fast days and for ma'amadot, as when explained in Hilchot Klei Hamikdash 6:1, groups outside of Yerushalayim would gather to pray during the week. They were designated to represent the nation at the Beit HaMikdash. So when the large assembly cannot be contained by the synagogue, has no sanctity, for it is used casually and is not established for prayer, meaning that, a city square. So too, houses and courtyards where the people gather for prayer have no sanctity, for they are not established for prayer alone, but are casually used for prayer, like a person praying in his own home. So that's the end of chapter 11.